Welcome to Strictly Business, news and opinions about Wall Street, the economy, and business.
Good morning and welcome to the program. I'm Mark Haynes, sitting in for Bill Griffith this week. It was an eventful week, of course, dominated by the President's State of the Union address, but there were a lot of other things going on as well. Let's take a look now at how the week went. The President delivers a tough-talking State of the Union message that contains few initiatives to get the economy going.
We are going to lift this nation out of hard times inch by inch and day by day, and those who would stop us had better step aside, because I look at hard times and I make this vow: this will not stand.
He proposes tax breaks for first-time home buyers and companies that buy capital equipment, as well as a cut in the capital gains tax. And for the first time in history, a budget contains more money for Social Security than for defense. Democrats respond it does not do enough for the middle class, and the battle is joined.
Why now, when the public is skeptical enough about their political leaders, do we again return to smoke and mirrors, the kind of gimmicks that we saw in the 80s?
Chairman Greenspan goes to Capitol Hill for his confirmation hearings and says he sees subtle signs of an economic recovery. That sends the bond and stock markets into a tailspin for fear there will be no more lowering of interest rates. And the subtlety of the recovery is apparently lost on the average consumer. Consumer confidence plunges to its lowest point in 12 years. Also lacking confidence, American and Japanese automakers, who say they are cutting back production because they don't think things will improve until summer. More corporate bad news. Bethlehem Steel announces a bigger loss than last year and says it is trimming another 6,500 workers. R.H. Macy files for bankruptcy, and analysts say the company will survive, but as a smaller operation. On top of all that, the gross domestic product for the fourth quarter comes in at a barely breathing 0.3%. On the bright side, Bush and Boris start a game of can you top this, as the arms race turns into the disarmament race. And let's introduce our panel this morning. Lawrence Kudlow, Chief Economist at Bear Stearns, Christine Pinto, Senior Investment Strategist at Merrill Lynch, and Bill Woolman, Chief Economist at CNBC and Business Week. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
We had a number of numbers come out this week, which we were talking before the program. If you'd asked me last week, Bill, I would have said the recession was over. But now, GDP, 0.3%, and Friday, new home sales plummeting, LEI down 0.3%. Is this the triple dip or the quadruple dip?
You've been misguided on the state of the economy.
No question about it.
Now, but these numbers are very weak. January obviously has gotten off very weak, and the best thing to describe the economy, I think, is zero. It's doing nothing at this point, and that's rather disappointing because I think a lot of people thought we'd be beginning to see those signs, those subtle signs that Alan Greenspan saw are so subtle that not only the consumer can't see them, other people can't see them either. Larry? And to tell you the truth, I don't think Alan Greenspan can see them either.
All right, Larry, does Alan Greenspan see them? He went up to Capitol Hill. He said he sees subtle signs of recovery, probably won't have to ease again. Is he wrong?
Well, the first point I'd make on these economic numbers, Bill Woolman doesn't ever understand the impact of taxes on the economy. What's going on here is that since the tax talk, especially the tax cutting talk, started in late November, I think virtually all activity has been put on hold until people can see what tax rates for which purposes are going to finally be legislated in 1992. So that would help to explain the weakness in December. And my guess is there's going to be more weakness in January because most of the Bush tax proposals from the Treasury Department have as their effective date February 1st, 1992. So there's going to be a lot of deferral and postponement because of this.
I just want to make the point. I don't want to be accused of not understanding this. I do agree that the durable goods numbers in December is affected by the prospect of an investment tax credit.
And the home sales.
Maybe to some extent.
All right. I was too hard. I take it back.
Yes, you were too hard. I don't think the average
home
person expected
this harmony is wonderful.
So are we going to allow that the uptick in initial unemployment claims, which is putting us back in the high or mid to high fours on an average weekly basis, is that tied to these two phenomena, or is this something more structural, and that is that the demand for labor is simply falling because the services economies are no longer growing and are prospectively not going to be growing at near the paces that they did in prior recoveries?
Christine, something really struck me. When you looked at the GNP data, or I guess now the GDP data for the fourth quarter, defense spending was down by $11.5 billion an annual rate in the fourth quarter. That's a huge number. I mean, I have not seen that kind of a number for a long time. there's a real cut in defense spending. I think this is affecting the employment numbers, among other things.
We had a $60 billion swing to the plus side in exports between the third and the fourth quarter. So that should really be putting some wind in the sails of the new orders, components, and production. We'll see, of course, on Monday with the Purchasing Managers Index that's due.
But you see, on the Greenspan issue, I don't actually think Greenspan said that much one way or another. And there was nothing in there that I thought indicated no more easing in our lifetime.
Said enough to tank the bond market.
I think there was something else going on, though. On that Wednesday, I think a lot of people finally got their hands on some of the specific proposals in the State of the Union and the budget. And one thing Wall Street saw that it did not like is the notion that they're going to be forced, the broker-dealers are going to be forced to market their inventories, and they're going to have to pay taxes on any gains. Prior to this, you could merely take the lower of the mark-to-market or the cost, and so the tax issue is not in the way. It almost sounded like, on the one hand, what the Treasury was going to give us for lower capital gains, they were going to take away on the other. And remember, government bond dealers live and die with inventories,
and
so this could account for a lot of that swing in prices, and I'm not sure by the end of the week the price swing was over.
And could the Fed actually be worried that too much of this great debt refinancing that we're going through today, both from the consumer and the corporate sector, through the mortgages and so forth, too much of this is getting away from the banking system and to the brokerage community? Look at the medium-term note business last year that absolutely soared. Commercial paper is up much more than commercial and industrial loans, which are non-existent.
Another clinker in the tax bill, quite frankly, is this business about taxing the buildup and the value of annuities in insurance companies, which I think is another big impact. And also another
example.
Without descending into the arcane depths of the tax code, let me ask you this: with the FOMC meeting next week, do you think that we have seen a series of numbers here in the last week or so that will cause them to rethink what Greenspan apparently said last week?
Well, maybe not next week, but the fact of the matter is these guys can say what they want. Monetary policy will be driven by what the economy does, okay? And if the economy does continue to weak, they'll ease again. You know, with a deflator, I hate to use numbers, inflation was 1.7% in the fourth quarter. With a 1.7% inflation rate, even a 4% Fed funds rate is a fairly high Fed funds rate.
And you can see other signs here. Commodity prices are starting to weaken again. The price of gold towards the end of the week came down several dollars. Copper, which had been mounting a mini rally at least, is giving that back. Silver's giving it back. Metals are giving it back.
And the dollar didn't really tank on these economic numbers this week either, and that's more important now to the long end of the bond market than it's ever been. See, particularly this presumption that if we're going to have foreigners come back, they want a stable currency this time around.
I think if gold prices are moving back towards that magic $350 an ounce, and I think that's a very bullish sign for bonds, and I think long-term rates are going to come down.
So the market's wrong.
And I think the bond traders in the market are wrong. But I think these people are under pressure from some crazy tax laws. But the market will straighten itself out.
All right. Coming up in our next segment, we'll take a look at the State of the Union address. Stay with us.
Fettuccine, tortellini, linguine. I can't pass up any eeny, but I'll pass on this grated topping. See, some grated toppings are only 2/3 cheese and 1/3 fats and fillers, but Kraft is 100% grated Parmesan.
Kraft 100% grated Parmesan for 100% great taste.
Ravioli, mustacholi, great on olis too.
When you come from a land as remote as ours, you learn that reliability is not an option. That's why our airline has a maintenance record the envy of every other airline. While some would say it's just the Australian spirit to go further, others know that spirit simply as Qantas.
What's the worst part of treating your worst colds?
A cold medicine that leaves me spacey.
Well, it's the cold medicine that can zonk me out. I hate that. It's like I'm off in the ozone somewhere. Groggy, spacey.
Introducing Sudafed Severe Cold Formula.
If it could help stop the cough and the fever, but not stop me from getting to work, that'd be great.
The first Sudafed cough, cold, and flu tablet, and it has nothing but maximum strength ingredients.
All that and it won't knock me out? Perfect.
New Sudafed Severe Cold Formula. Maximum strength without drowsiness.
Something's waiting inside the powerful 486 SX computer. A technology that will make it even more powerful. We call it Room for the Future. Introducing built-in upgradability. Check into it. From Intel, the computer inside.
Plant a tree, now is the time to recognize a tree for all that it is worth. Plant a tree for your tomorrow.
You know, we're just beginning to realize how fragile our planet is and the kind of risk we take when we destroy a forest or pollute the atmosphere. You can do something for a healthy environment, for your children, and for the future. Join me and plant a tree.
This business can be top-heavy with information, so we work hard getting to the bottom of the issues.
Checking the action in...
What does this decision mean for investors? What does it mean in the long run for the stock market? You dig and ask questions until you have all the right answers.
State of the Union. Hyped quite a bit before the president delivered it. He delivered it, and Bill Woolman, your general reaction?
My general reaction is I finally understand George Bush. It was not a bad speech, by the way, as speeches go, just as rhetoric. I finally understand what he does. He wants to win, okay? He doesn't really, that is his principal goal in life. And it was a speech, I think, designed to win, designed from his point of view, to win the election. I don't think there's a single principle in the speech that's worth talking about.
Well,
that's basically it.
Well, Christine, wait a minute. Oh, well.
Well, as a member of the dual income, no kid contingency, I feel that we have been completely left out of this particular one. I think there might be one other qualifying member of this panel who falls into that category as well.
A credit for the dog.
You do get a credit for
dogs.
dogs. But in terms of qualifying as a first-time home buyer and being somebody who has unfortunately been caught in the real estate debacle in this particular part of the world where we have lost money in a home, carried forward an earlier gain, I mean, we don't qualify for anything in this plan, and it really seems to me...
But do not the people, wait a minute, do not the people who make $30,000, $40,000 who make up the bulk of the middle class in this country, do not they qualify, and is not that the most important thing?
Well, they certainly do, providing that they have been contributing to their IRAs on a regular basis and have done a good job with the IRA and retirement accounts that are going to become available for first-time home buyers and so forth. I kind of disagree with this fiddling with first-time home buyer credits, because I think I think what it does is it subsidizes the housing market. We should let free enterprise decide where housing prices ebb and flow.
But I think, you know, everyone's trashing Bush on this, and I've been very critical of his non-economic policy, but I think this was a good speech from Bush, and what impressed me about the speech is for the first time in 3 years, he is providing an expansionary message to the public and the business community. Instead of raising taxes, he's cutting them. Instead of raising regulations, he wants to roll them back. And instead of spending at a rapid rate, he's trying to have a budget freeze.
You raise an interesting point, though. The way you phrase what you just said points out that Bush, in effect, is complaining about himself. He's saying, I've blown it for the last 3 years.
Absolutely.
Well, how about for the last decade?
Since the Democrats don't have a candidate, Bush will probably have to run against himself.
Well, that's
clear he's going to run against Congress.
The guy doesn't have a... Yes. I don't know what his economic... I really don't know what his economic... I don't know what he is in economics.
Have the Republicans fundamentally changed? Are they going to start relying more on the trickle-up theory than the trickle-down theory, given the fact that the wealthy and the home buyers during the 1980s basically blew it? They overspent on expensive housing, which they overbought luxury goods, which they sold at distressed prices. None of this litany
started until taxes started to be raised. First in the '86 tax bill, which was a bunch of mistakes, decimating real estate, contracting wealth, and then the silly tax increase during the 1990 recession. But on the bright side, the single best item in Bush's whole State of the Union was an extraordinary drop in the capital gains tax rate. Nobody, not even the Kemp Group, thought they would get it down to 15%.
Well, Larry, I would not hold my breath.
Hang on, let me finish on this. one thing that hasn't really been picked up yet by people looking at this is that you don't have to wait 3 years to get the 45% exclusion. As of February 1st, 1992, you've got a 1-year window. If you hold a financial asset for a year, you can cash it in at a 15.4% rate in 92. And I'm telling you, this is going to have a powerful impact on the economy
Recycling.
if it passes.
It's going to have a powerful impact on the earnings of the
the
brokerage houses, that's for sure.
Let's
About
switch to the
economy,
political side of this whole equation. The president put his message out, but there's not been a lot of follow-up. Why are they not trying to sell this better?
This is just, you know, you've got Richard Darman, who may or may not believe in it, but you wouldn't know he believed in it the way he was on television in the 4 hearings. Michael Boskin is nowhere to be found.
You're not answering the question why.
Nick Brady is nowhere to be found.
Is this disarray in the White House?
There is a good deal of disarray, and of course, with the redesignation of the GDP statistics late last year, the full details of the new budget aren't going to be available relative to economic numbers for, what, a month now.
But that's
So
not
there's-
stopping them from selling the program. The non-sale of the program has got to do undoubtedly with disarray. They're not well organized at this point. It may well be that we're going to long for John Sununu again before it's all over.
Or could there be a change of leadership within the
I think Sam
inner
Skinner
circle?
you're going to see a lot of personnel changes. I mean, we've had some. You're going to see a lot more from Chief of Staff Sam Skinner. But the other problem is that I get the impression continuously that neither Boskin, nor Darman, nor Brady really supports the thrust of Bush's shift from a restrictive policy to an expansionary policy.
Okay, we'll talk about it more in our next segment. Stay with us. More to come.
What would the classroom be like without cable? Cable companies across America have made a commitment to provide free service and programming to every secondary school in their communities. Cable contributes to life.
Want to lower your blood pressure? Have a banana. To prevent a stroke, eat lots of potatoes. You can even lower your cholesterol by snacking on popcorn. Want to know the secrets to really feeling good? Then you need to know what foods can help make you well and what foods can keep you healthy. That's why the editors of Prevention Magazine Health Books asked leading nutritionists for the foods and recipes that can actually prevent and even cure today's most worrisome illnesses and common health problems. Now it's all in one important book, The Healing Foods. I'm Joanne D'Agostino, nutritional consultant to Prevention Magazine Health Books. I'm also a registered nurse, so I know the healing foods can help dramatically improve your health and well-being. Over 450 pages documented by 180 doctors and nutritionists. Healing foods that can help prevent over 65 illnesses and conditions from colds to cholesterol, even heart disease and diabetes. You'll learn which tasty soups, delicious pastas, and hearty breads can actually help you lose weight, what fish dishes can help prevent arthritis, even a kind of cheesecake that will help fight osteoporosis, all in the Healing Foods.
Call now for the Healing Foods. Try it absolutely free for 21 days, 3 full weeks to learn how you can improve your health with food you like to eat. Then if you choose to keep it, we'll bill you in 3 easy installments of only $8.99.
And as a free gift, you'll get the special report from Prevention, Young Skin for Life. Over 50 pages of beauty secrets and makeover advice on how to prevent and reverse the signs of aging without cosmetic surgery or artificial makeup.
Remember, you can try the Healing Foods free for 21 days, and the free guide to young-looking skin is yours to keep.
Call for the Healing Foods now. And by the way, an apple a day does keep the doctor away.
Call 1-800-228-2112. 1-800-228-2112.
How would you like to take the business news each night, debate it, thrash it, argue it out? That's what we do on Business Insiders every weeknight on CNBC FNN.
The State of the Union is seen by two skeptical, funny, and one of their wives feels slightly insensitive observers. Richard Belzer and Joe Queenan tonight right here on CNBC.
Privacy. Who wants to know? Strangers are asking about your health, politics, finances, and work habits. How can you stop them? Tonight on McLaughlin.
That was the economic calendar you just saw, but of course there is a political calendar operating as well here as we proceed toward Election Day. Bill, a week ago you said Clinton would be gone by Thursday.
Right.
You're wrong.
Well, he's not quite gone by Thursday, but I still hold to the position that Clinton is finished, basically. I still think so.
Still think it's going to be Benson Bradley was your prediction.
Benson Bradley was my prediction, although Dan Quayle entered the list on Friday and predicted it would be Mario Cuomo again. So, I mean, I'm not the only one who thinks that the current field is not going to be there.
Well,
Election Day.
He's not gone, let's face it, because there's the Hillary factor, which, of course, we didn't even know anything about 2 weeks ago. And she has really put on a very good show for the last several days. And I think has brought having an experience of having several guests over for dinner to watch her interview on Thursday evening will perhaps bring to the polls and to the voting booth a contingency of voters who've never been there before on her behalf.
She plays well, to use your term, with the dinks, Christine, but she doesn't play well with the dumpies. Can I define a dumpy?
I was waiting for, we've been waiting for
downwardly mobile yuppie, okay? And I think for those people who really hurt by the economy, she plays very well.
I will have you know that I had several dumpies in my living room that night, and dual unemployed no kids as well.
I think it's more interesting is Bush's position in the New Hampshire polls has really improved after his State of the Union.
And Buchanan's.
And in fact, Buchanan's position is deteriorating significantly. And I think what you have to do now is Bush has got to get a senior staff that supports his policies so he can sell it on the Hill.
Bush has not been mortally wounded, in your opinion, or no, what you're telling me he's not even bleeding profusely.
As is usually the case in American politics, Bush's best friend is the Democratic Party. You know, we can argue these silly arguments, but no one really cares because they're not serious candidates at this
Who
point.
are you calling silly?
So I think, in effect, the real issue here is going to be, can Bush sell his capital gains tax cut and the rest of his package on the Hill before March 20th? You know, the rumors in the administration are that if the president doesn't get his package by March 20th, he is going to index the capital gains tax by executive order and fire a shot across the bow.
Will he...
thereby making the world safe for women, children, and their financial assets from this day forward.
Well, at least we can be safe from something. You know, that helps economic growth as well.
Do you think he stands to gain anything, Christine, from playing at that hardball in an election year?
Oh, I definitely do. And watching his body language with that State of the Union address on Tuesday evening, it impressed even this humble soul.
Okay. Are there sharks circling, do you think?
Circling who?
Republican sharks circling the president.
Well, there are some rumors around. I really don't believe that. This, you know, a sitting president, it takes a lot to beat a sitting president. It really does. And Bush looks about as safe to me as anybody can imagine, providing the economy doesn't really crash.
You agree?
I mean, which is, it probably won't really crash.
Well, I think, you know, I think Bush did himself a lot of good on the State of the Union speech, but I think there are a couple of issues here. Number one, the economic numbers this winter are going to be flat. Number two, he may not get his package through Congress, therefore he could suffer a setback. And number three, I wouldn't write Buchanan off entirely yet in New Hampshire because he may have a rebound. Now, there's a bunch of speculation in Washington that there are Republican candidates in the wings, and they are waiting to come in if, in fact, Buchanan hurts Bush. Well, one is former Delaware Governor Pete DuPont, who has his committee essentially revived. Another is Senator Phil Gramm, who runs the Senate Campaign Committee and has a pot full of money. And then there's the odd third or half of Bush's own cabinet that would like to jump in if there are any serious signs of weakness.
Such as?
Well, I can think of
experienced campaigners like Kemp?
At least one HUD secretary and probably one Secretary of State and maybe even a Secretary of Defense has more than a passing interest in this.
You can't be serious that Baker would challenge Bush this year?
Well, I don't think he'll challenge him head on, Bill, but the issue is what happens in New Hampshire. That's the whole thing. The morning after the New Hampshire primary, you're going to know up or down whether the Republican race gets larger or whether the Republican race is over.
And it will be a gentleman's agreement between the two of them because they go way, way back. And I think that could be a mutually decided event if it happens. Speaking of Baker at this point.
I didn't quite get your the finishing thought, though, that you had on the Democrats. Aside from the Hillary factor, is Clinton finished? And if so, who would people like
I don't think Clinton was ever in the game. I really want to tell you, managing an economy of 2 million people, which is what, roughly the size of Staten Island, I don't believe that initially qualified him to run this country in the first place.
On that basis, which of them are qualified?
Yeah, how about the guy from Iowa? Or the one from the liberal from Massachusetts?
The what? Right, exactly.
Who else is in that race? I mean, it's hard to remember.
Jerry Brown has managed the 8th largest economy in the world.
Jerry Brown's become the supply sider in that race. I can get a little excited about that.
That's right.
From a distance, of
now,
course.
the reason he's saying that, let me tell, the reason he's saying that Jerry Brown's supporting a flat tax of 15%, 15%, plus a value-added tax to raise any more revenue. Which I'm not a supply sider, but I love that. On that, I would say that is my ideal tax system.
Well, you have the occasional lucid flash.
I would love that tax. It'd just be really great. But unfortunately, you know, he's not a serious candidate, and there's no way that the people in Gucci Gulch, I mean, you just can't would accept that. I mean, you destroy every tax lawyer in the country, and they just won't live with that. That's all.
All right, let's move on.
You can't beat them.
Let's move on to a subject that came up late in the week, and that is Richard Darman. Is he going to keep his job? Suddenly, people are talking about the possibility that he's the next Sununu. So let's go on the record here, and we'll start with Mr. Kaplan.
Well, I think, yes, he'll keep his job, but I think his job is going to be downsized and restructured, much like some of these corporate layoffs. I think Richard Darman got hurt very badly in this budget process. He lost on a lot of key issues, including deep capital gains and health care reform. He was embarrassed publicly when they sent his budget, pulled it back from the print shop. So, yeah, I think he can hang on by his toenails, but it's really going to be more of an accountant's position rather than chief negotiator for the administration.
Who was it that wrote the original economic Dunkirk report, who was later then accused of open-mouthing the Trojan horse policy?
We're running out of time. We've got to get to the vote.
Stockman, where is Stockman when we need him? That's right.
How does that translate?
Well, I think the bond market is worried about busting the budget, but I think that they're going to have to, and Darman's the one that's going to be accused of it, and he'll be out.
Mr. Wallman.
I'm on Christine's side on this. Darman is out. Bush is going to have to get himself some new people on this side.
All right. And for the record, I will vote no. Mr. Darman will keep his job for two reasons. One, after the Sununu mess, the president just won't want another mess. And number two, I mean, it's just going to create too much turmoil out. He will stick with Darman. But I tend to lean toward Larry's view that they will scale him back.
Of course, Richard could have another if Richard really gets on the supply side bandwagon and really sells this capital gains tax
which, as you've pointed out, he is not doing so far.
Not at the moment, but if he changes the stripes and really puts some elbow grease into selling this on the Hill, then perhaps he can salvage his job and his influence.
Nor is he encouraging the president to use the peace dividend for retraining and easing the Pentagon cuts either, which could be very important to a very important constituency of workers in the defense community.
Next week, ask us, we're really going to get a capital gains tax cut. I don't want to mislead the viewers over here.
That is the first question next week. And that's strictly business. I'm Mark Haynes. Join us again next week. Thank you very much.
Okay.